I'm going to add in all those milestone definition things. So what we want to do is just insert a couple of rows so we have enough room to add those plaques. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert some shapes, and you can pick kind of a few different types of shapes, but for this purpose I'll just get the rounded rectangle. And if I drag out a rounded rectangle here, I can pick the fill color for this. So let's make it sort of like, I guess this will do. And then we're going to add a sort of like a line down from the bottom of that actually defines, so you can see where in the schedule it's going to be. So I go over here and pick the line tool, and then I can just drag that down. Now you can see that it's sort of freeform and will go all over the place. If I hold down the shift key, hold down the shift as I'm doing that, it'll keep it in a nice straight line, and we'll just make that go right down to the bottom of our project. And again, we can define the style of it. So I want it to be a bit thicker, that's a bit thin, and I also want it to be the same color. So I'm going to change it to that sort of reddish pinky color. And then I'm going to go to the shape outline, and I'm going to make the weight of it probably about 1.5 pixels. That's a bit intrusive, so 1.5 pixels. And then I'm going to select both of those things by holding down the control key. If I can do that, control key, there we are. Now I could move them around together, but every time I deselect one, and it's decided to stay together, which is kind of very cool. I think it's because I connected it up here. Usually I'd go through and I'd actually group them, select the two different things and group, but it's done it for me, which is fantastic. So I'm going to go to the end of our first milestone here. Okay, so if we click on this, and then we can just type in MS1. Now I know we've sort of defined this down here, but these are nice little visual indicators along the way that can help us also define things. So here we're in pre-production, and that's what I'll put it here, which we know is sort of defining the project. So what I'm going to do is each one is going to have the milestone name and then the kind of the key deliverable from that milestone. If I just go home and I just want to center that, I probably want to make this part of it a little bit bigger, so I just select that text and increase it a little bit smaller, about there. And this box doesn't need to be quite so big. Oh yes it does, there we go. Just move it down a bit. Okay, so now we've got milestone 1. It's just a matter of copying and pasting that. This is why I group things. Very good, Jeff. Okay, let me undo that, let me delete that, let me select both of those again, so both things are selected, and this time I actually only am going to pick group. Where's the shapes thing? There we are. So I'm going to group them together, and that way it's one big thing. So when I select it, copy and paste, I get the line as well as the box. So again, if I line that up there, if I hold down the shift key as I'm moving things, it will keep it on the one axis and stop it from going around everywhere. So milestone 2 there, copy paste. Probably pause the video as I go through and do all these. So I've gone through and copied and pasted all those different milestones, and I've labelled them with the milestone name and then their key deliverable throughout that. And then of course we have our polish period, and let's call that alpha. This is where we're pretty much locked down. We're not going to add anything more to the game. We should be kind of content complete at this point in time, which means we don't have to make anything else. We've already made it, but what we do have to do is make sure everything is to a finished level and it's nice and polished. And then of course our delivery. So this whole period here, I won't call it beta. I'll just, for this purpose, I'll call it beta down here. But there's obviously an end delivery date, and this one's very important. So I'm going to double click on that, and it will bring up this, and I'm going to choose a nice red style, really important. Release. Okay, so there we have with our major milestone indicators. We've got our beta periods, our alpha period. Let's make that nice and red so it stands out and everybody goes, oh, look at that. Let's make that orange, not quite red. And then obviously the other milestones are just work in progress. And I think we've pretty much done it. Oh, one thing we haven't done. We've got our extra quality assurance artist, so tester, I should say. So what we're going to do is just block out these last 4 weeks, including this pre-alpha delivery period. We're just going to merge them together, make them grey like the other QA periods, and just add in QA testing. Okay, well, I better give the project a name, so I might just merge all those cells and call it game prototype. And it's a roadmap, I guess, so roadmap. Make that a bit bigger so it's got a nice label, and fill in any ugly gaps just by merging the cells in those areas. Oh, what I haven't added is a today date. So I'm just going to copy and paste one of those. I'm going to call it today. Make it a little smaller than the rest, and let's change that color to something a little bit more appropriate. Maybe just straight out green. Yeah, that would do. And also, obviously, on the little indicator, we'll make that green as well. And I think it's a bit too thick. It can be a darker color. Wait, something like that. So the project manager will kind of manage this and move it to where he needs it. And in this case, obviously, it's a Wednesday midweek. We should have done all this stuff and delivered this first playable milestone, and be working on this current stuff. Like, if we haven't, if this has had some scope creep, or we haven't got things done as fast as we want, and we're still working on the white box stuff for the combat and whatnot here, and we haven't been able to deliver this milestone, we're already behind, and we might have to do a little bit of an overtime. So this is a general guide for the project manager to say, hey team, we have to pick up the game and we have to get things done. And they've seen this, they had a chance early on to buy into this plan, so they'll be more than willing to either put in the hard yards to get to catch up on the work, or maybe even discuss how they can mitigate this by removing some extra scope on the back end and adding that time at the front. Okay, so that's pretty much a wrap. This project roadmap would be created early on in this pre-production. It would be kind of more predominantly during this week. I'd do multiple versions of this with all the programming team, make sure they all agree on the time frames and who's working together and what's been working on at those particular times, and then we'd have our kickoff meetings and form the strike teams and develop all those individual tasks that need to be done during this period. So that's it. If you can deliver a similar style Excel document that outlines how you're going to deliver your game, then you're doing really well, and you're going to have a much better chance of actually getting the thing built and completed if you stick to your plan, or at least follow the path of your plan and modify it on the way. Thanks very much for listening. Bye.